right now. All right, we are live. All right, folks, welcome back to another This Week in Photo critique. That sounds weird. Photo critique. TWIP photo critique is what this is. The topic for this week was, or this critique was, open general. So our members are able to submit anything they wanted, and I think the only loose guidelines, Troy, we gave, or at least I gave when I created that post, were preferably it would be something that you shot fresh for this critique. Although that's not a hard and fast requirement. It could be something that you just you pulled out of the archive and hopefully re-edited. And that's actually interesting. Have you done that recently, Troy? Because the raw processors in Lightroom, Capture One, etc., have been steadily advancing. So the shots that you created years ago, it might make sense to revisit them and re-ingest the raw files and see if you can do better with them. Have you done that at all?
I have, and it's funny, I'm grinning because even before you and I got on the call, I thought, what would be a great topic? And I thought, what if the next topic is that you have to go back and get like one of the oldest digital files you can find and re-edit it and show like what it looked like before, what it looked like after.
I like it.
Okay. It's funny that you and I are on the same, but I have every file that I've ever pushed the button on. I have saved every file. And on occasion, I'll go back into my archives and I'll go back to like 2008 and I'll pull up a wedding image and I'll look at it and be like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. It's overexposed and no detail in the highlights. And then I bring it into like Capture One or the current version of Lightroom and I'm like, gosh, the cameras were way better than the software. So yeah, absolutely. It's worth it.
I think I know why we both had this idea at the same time. Deborah Cole in the chat, who's a TWIP member, I read her article and I think she put that bug in my ear because part of what she was talking about was reprocessing. Yeah, so thank you for reminding me,
that too.
Deborah.
You're right. You're probably right.
That's where it came from because my brain's probably like, yeah, I should go back and look at some of those old Canon 10D shots and see what modern software can do with a 10D shot from 1945. Right?
I don't know if it can help a 10D. I don't know. I think that's probably well past.
Yeah. You got to have the pixels in order for it to work its magic, right?
I've had clients after 8 years come back and build their wedding album. And, you go back and you look at those images and you're like, okay, these are beautiful images. But then you bring them in and it updates the raw converter and you look at them again and you're like, oh, can I re-edit the whole job for you? Like, can we just re-edit the whole job? Because it's so much better,
Yeah. And that's not going to stop, right? It's software and the folks behind it are continually improving it, and hardware is getting better too, and all the things, right? So what was captured, which is interesting, right? Because back in the day with film and enlargers and dim and duck processing, there was no concept of, oh yeah, let's go. I mean, you could go reprocess that image with new skills, I guess that's the equivalent, but being able to take that negative or that slide and having it somehow be markedly better in the future was not a thing, and now it kind of is. It's one of the joys of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, a little bit in film, it was a lot like that. I mean, Ansel Adams was a big fan of like reprinting his images, over time. Like Moonrise over Hernandez is a good example where as chemistry got better, paper got better, his technique got better, he would go back and reprint things and the final product would be better or it'd be closer to his vision. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing we should do.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it'll be inspired by Deborah Cole. Thank you for planting that seed, Deborah. All right, Open General, you ready for this?
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of good images. I am going to have a very, very difficult time picking, so I'm going to let you do it.
To preempt the pressure of picking the favorite, right? I'm just going to close my eyes and throw a dart.
I'll help influence. I always have an opinion. So
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and share the TWIP community. Here we are. Too many windows on my screen right now. All right, here's the TWIP community. Let me reload this because clearly you can see I haven't reloaded this page in the last 20 minutes. So I'm going to reload it. And it should say in progress. There we go. We are in progress. And if you're in the community, this here is an embed of this stream that you're watching right now. So Inception. And this will also be where the replay is. So after we conclude this, you'll be able to go back to this event in past events because it'll disappear from upcoming. You can go back into past events and this will always live there as the replay. All right, and here's Deborah. Let's see. All right, here we go. Our first shot is from Deborah Cole. Let's bring this up. I'm not going to read all this. You guys can read it, but let's look at this image on the merits with no context. So I'm not reading her caption yet, but we'll look at this with no context of the caption and see how it moves us. Troy, what do you think of this first one from Deborah?
Well, I love the emotion that we have in this. We have these three humans that all have like these different expressions on their face, and the story that we can fill in is vast and infinite. And then I love the treatment. Where I'm kind of struggling is it's a little tight on the people. So I'm not a big fan of like really pinching in on like our subject on the right. Like I wish there was a little bit more space. So I felt like they were more in their environment instead of trapped inside the frame that we have. Mm-hmm. And I would like less foreground and more vertical or more background. Now I don't know what's there, and I don't know, Deborah, like you chose like how to crop it and things like that. But for me, those are just a couple things. So especially the right side. I wish that young lady that's sitting on the step wasn't right against the edge of the frame. But the emotion and stuff in this is fantastic, and what wonderful timing. And I really enjoy the black and white treatment. I think it's handled very, very well here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking at it. I think differently though. So the black and white processing, yeah, it's great. From again, couching all this stuff in subjectivity, right? We're just two guys making comments about images, about photography because we love photography. When I look at this shot, I instantly put on my street photography viewing hat, right? And I'm looking at this as a snapshot or a core sample or a biopsy into the world of these folks, right? And how they're living. And she's kind of bringing us into it as if you're another person hanging out with these individuals. You're in this circle. And I get that, right? So it makes me feel like the woman on the left is giving words of wisdom to the younger people on the right, and the one in the middle doesn't necessarily want to hear it or thinks it's funny or whatever, and the one on the far right of the frame is looking back at her like, what the heck are you talking about? You don't understand what's happening today, So the bottom line is it's giving me a story. I feel a story coming out of this, even if it's a story in one frame. So I love that. I even love the busyness of the photo and the way she chose to process this and pop out our subjects from the background. There's still a contrasty sort of busy background, which I feel like is intentional because all of that is adding to the overall story here. Now, from a compositional perspective, Troy, you know how I feel about things being too close to the edge of the frame, right? So our subject on the far right is close to the edge of the frame, but I don't feel like it's egregious. And I also like the spacing between that person on the far right of the frame and all the other busyness on the left of the frame, because it kind of it makes you think like, what's going on? Is this person standoffish or, whatever? It gives you like these instant feelings of what's happening in the shot. And then down here in this lower right-hand corner, we've got a lot of dead space here. So I don't know what could have been done about that compositionally to sort of, I don't know if you want to remove it, but to de-emphasize this little eddy down here. But I get lost down here in the lower right a little bit, just for a few seconds, and I feel like all the action somehow is being pushed and crowded up to the upper left because we have all this frequency over here, and it kind of drops off over here and then to nothing. So my brain goes like, what are all these pixels for? Not that you have to use every pixel in the screen, in a shot, but as you're trying to tell a narrative like this is just where my brain goes. But yeah, I dig it. It draws me in. The shot definitely draws me in. And I feel like I said before, I feel like I'm a participant in this shot versus just a voyeuristic viewer looking at it from afar. I like it.
Yeah. And just to add, I think that if you're going to have a subject that close to the frame on the right, where their body is touching the edge of the frame almost exactly, maybe try to crop them off in a very uncomfortable way, right? Like actually crop off her left knee or something to really lean into the tension of having somebody there, as opposed to it's almost tension, right? Like it's almost like that.
Yeah.
And then just fix the verticals. Like just it's rotated slightly counterclockwise. The pillar is sort of our dominant vertical. I would say just rotate that slightly clockwise so that vertical is vertical, and then everything else will fall into place. But I love it. Especially, I don't know if you noticed it, but there's like 3 people in the store in the background, and it takes a little while to find them, but it just adds to the environment of this shot. So it's super cool.
I wonder what the shot looked like in color. I love it in black and white. I think black and white was the right choice because of all the busyness of it. But I wonder what the color shot looked like. Did Deborah post the color shot?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, she didn't. Yeah, I'd love to see the color shot of this, Deborah, just to, kind of get either, I guess, what's the word I'm trying to say? So to emphasize how the removal of color can add to a photo, especially in one like this that's busy. You got a lot of action going on. The addition of color into that will take us even further out of what you're trying to tell us, right? So, or trying to show us with this interaction between these people, the color would make us kind of fixate on that and like, oh, I've got a red and black blanket like that, or something like that. But yeah, really cool shot. And thank you for sharing this. And Deborah says, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm following the chat and running the stream and looking at the photos. My processor is overheating. All right. So let's move down to our next shot. Is from Michael Rhino. He says, okay, trying out for the rowing team. He went on to take a shot while they were practicing. Okay, cool. All right. Troy Miller.
Cool image. Yeah, very cool image. I love the image. I mean, I love the color tone, and I'm really happy with the fact that the horizon isn't dead center. That would have been very easy to do with an image like this. So I love that. The fact that we have, the rowers, in the reflection of the sun, and that's on the left third, which I dig that as well. So a lot of intention to composition. I would probably lean more into more of a silhouette, of at least of the guys rowing, darker blacks. Like that's okay. Lean into that and create a little bit more contrast and saturation and punch in that. But other than that, I think it's super clean. And look at all that room, Frederick, for text at the top. There's all that room.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I see a big sans serif font across that says row.
Comic Sans.
Row harder. Yeah, Comic Sans. There you go. Row harder, Or this could be a motivational poster, Sometimes you just have to keep rowing or something. I don't know. I thought you were going to say something about the horizon, because you're a horizon police person. When people, I know this isn't the horizon isn't exactly in the middle here, but it's close to the middle. We've almost got it split in half. How come no negativity about the horizon, Troy?
Well, because it's not in the middle. And I think that that's what's so important about this, is that it's not in the middle. It's it seems to me like it's a conscious choice to give us enough foreground so we feel like we're far away, and yet enough sky to make us feel like, there's the sun just there. It would have been very easy to put that horizon in the middle, and then I think it would have ruined it. But it's just below center, and I think that works. And I commend Michael for his intention on all the the composition and horizontal lines, and not having it dead center. Putting the
Hmm.
rowers on the lower left third. I mean, it works amazingly well here. So I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it too. I agree with you on the whole idea of leaning into the silhouette nature of this because it's a very simplistic image, right? We've got this,
Right.
three objects basically. The sky area, the water, and then our rowers in there. So it's already very graphical. So maybe lean into that a little bit. I see what he was trying to do. So it looks like Michael was trying to simulate what we'd see or what he saw when we looked out there, which would be this haze kind of as you're looking directly into a light source at backlit subjects. It's going to look like this. But yeah, I agree with you, Troy. Maybe lean into less of the reality and just go more artist interpretation and pump up that contrast a little bit. What about the color? Would you leave the warmish colors as is or make a change there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I love the warm colors, and I think that if you simply bring down the blacks or the shadows, you're going to get more saturation in the color, which I think would really add to the image. I mean, I'm a big fan of contrast and saturated colors. So, but even if you didn't do that, if you just did it, on like a linear curve, bringing down the shadows, I think would make this image much stronger.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, this is one of those shots you could see printed, right? Printed big and hanging somewhere as a giant panorama, assuming the
Right.
resolution is there to do it. That was the other thing. So I don't know if it's an artifact of just the haze or the backlit nature of this, but at first glance, I thought it was soft, and I think it's because of the fall off. See the fall off here
Mm-hmm.
between, I think it happens about right here. We fall off towards the horizon, and then it's the horizon becomes soft, and all this up here, of course, is a little soft. I think that was kind of short circuiting my brain because a shot like this, you would think all of the, depending on the hardware you shot it with or the lens you shot it with, I would think it would have been sharp all the way to the horizon, maybe, unless he was really far away and shot it with a telephoto. But even then, I don't know. Am I missing something? Because it feels, I like the shot, but I feel like that bokeh in there or the fall off is not congruent with optics. So maybe did he do it in post or was it actually like this? And I just don't understand photography. I don't know. What do
You
you
don't
think?
understand photography. That's clearly what it is.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm embracing
Yeah.
it. I'm embracing it. You got to know your limitations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's a good point. So zooming in on this image, he clearly Michael, sorry, you missed focus. So focus is in front of the rowers, and what you're seeing there is they are slightly out. Now, a long lens like this creates that compression, and you're going to have a shallow depth of field when you're looking into basically, this infinite distance that you have. It's a long, long distance behind, so it makes sense that it would go soft.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the focus is slightly off. However, it doesn't really matter in this image, and I think this is a good lesson for us to realize. Like sometimes you don't have to have perfect focus for an image to be successful, and I think in this case, that's that.
Uh-oh. Did we
You
lose
just
Troy
happen to
Miller?
care. That's where the fall off. Uh
Troy,
oh.
you froze. You froze for a second mid sentence, and now your video. Oh, yeah, I think your video's coming back because it looked like a
What the
slideshow for a second.
heck?
So rewind yourself about 10 seconds and repeat what you said.
I have no idea. All my stuff is off. Um, the focus, the depth of field, the fall off starts right at the rowers, and it's okay if it's slightly soft, right? Because the story still works, the image still works. But yes, you caught on to the depth of field that we have going on with this lens. You get the foreground is sharp, the middle ground is slightly out, and then the background is a lot out. It looks very natural to me. That seems like that's very realistic. but
All
it's
right.
definitely a thing.
Okay. All right. And, life happens. My daughter just got dropped off from gymnastics. I got to go open the door for her. So stand by. Keep, keep vamping about this image while I go open the door for her. I'll be right back.
Okay, so in this image, well, I don't know. See, now that he's not here, I don't know what to say. No. Um, for all of us that are looking at our images, sometimes we get really hung up on the technicals. We get really hung up on, oh, it's got to be perfectly sharp, or it's got to be, this level of contrast, or it's got to be shot with just this type of lens. And ultimately, I think that if the image tells the story that you want to tell, then go with it.
Okay, I'm back.
I'm still going, so don't interrupt me now.
Okay.
No, just one last thought. We're talking about sharpness. There's lots of images, as a wedding and portrait photographer, that might not be perfectly in focus, but the client still loves them. So don't get so hung up on the technicals, right? Just look at the image. Does the image convey your emotion or the story you want to say? And if it does, it's good. It's a success. There
Love
we
it.
go.
Very cool. All right. Thank you, Michael Rhino. All right. Up next is Thomas. He says a slight different take on a location that's been photographed and posted tens of millions of times to social media. What say you about this shot, Troy Miller?
I love this shot. I mean, I never get tired of seeing, these locations. I mean, there's tons of locations in nature, from, Horseshoe Bend to Arches, Delicate Arch, and just around the world, right? And I always love to see them because I think it's neat to see somebody else's take on that particular region. And they're always slightly different, which I like a lot. So I really enjoy this image, how we have detail in the ocean up against those cliffs, and the Milky Way really sort of plays well into this location. What I'm struggling with on this image is we get, obviously, because you have the cars coming by, you're going to get light contamination up on the side of the hill. And so I would probably spend more time where the bridge ends, coming from where we are. There is, some vertical posts up on the hill. There are, a lot of light contamination there. I'd probably take that down a little bit. And then off to the right, where the very far end of the cars and the light trail goes, to the right of the cliff, there's some weird artifacting, shadowing, or something going on in the sky down there. And I would definitely make sure to double check that. But
Yeah. Have you been to this area? Because this is I feel like this is
yeah,
like that's the coast, right? Somewhere south
yeah,
of, I'm guessing, Monterey down there. Where is this?
yeah, south of Monterey, north of San Simeon.
Okay.
Is it north of Monterey or south of Monterey? I never can remember, but yeah, it's up the coast. I've driven over it a bunch of times.
Mm, mm.
It's a cool
Yeah,
drive.
this
Yeah,
this is a cool shot. Yeah, and these kinds of shots, or not just landscape shots in general, I guess, but especially ones of prominent architectural areas around the world. Like I have immense respect for art or landscape photographers that do this, and how they have to push to get something different, right? Because I use the example of the Golden Gate Bridge here in the Bay Area. Beautiful bridge, historic, I mean, it's just picturesque with the city in the background and the cloud layer coming on. But every time I go there, I'm like, this is beautiful, but how can I take a shot of this that hasn't been done before? From a
right.
360-degree bubble with a million points of, on the bubble aiming towards the bridge at every focal length, at every exposure, at every time of day. I feel like it's done. So when I see a shot like this, that somebody actually broke through and did something different, it just looks, it looks amazing to me. I like this. This shot, I don't know if it's just where my brain is these days, but my brain is suspect now of these beautiful shots like this. 'Cause I'm like, hey,
Right.
was AI involved in this at all? Like, I'm always, I know it's not, but I always go there, and then I don't know if it's just me, but I think, even if it's not AI, I look at it and I'm like, I wonder what the prompt was, or the prompt would be to generate a shot like this. And the reality of it is, a shot like this you probably could not create with AI today, right? The long exposure, the accuracy of the bridge, the Milky Way, the coastline, all of that stuff would be, I think, almost impossible to try to capture. And it would be worth it to just go here and shoot it and get the great shot as you want it, versus trying to recreate something like this with artificial intelligence. But yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And any time that you're going to go photograph somewhere that somebody else has been, and there's lots of places like that, right? Like, it really requires just being there at a different time, waiting for a unique circumstance. Something that only happens once in a decade kind of thing. And if you're really dedicated to it, I mean, Ansel Adams is another good example. The way he photographed, Yosemite Valley. I mean, he lived there for a long time, and he only has a handful of shots that are iconic because that one moment, the lighting was different and the environment was different and it was unique in some way. So, don't give up on shooting places just because somebody else has been there.
Yeah. And just to close the loop on where this is, who was the first to call it? I think it was Paolo called it, saying this is Bixby Bridge. And then Eric chimed in and said it's Bixby Bridge in Big Sur. Yeah. Or south of Carmel by the Sea. Yeah. Carmel by the Sea is where I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Ansel Adams' son, Michael Adams. They have a house in Carmel by the Sea, of course, hanging off of a cliff like Iron Man. It's amazing down there. All right, up next, Peter Levshin. And he says, back to nature. All right, you asked for contrast. Haven't we seen one? I think we've seen this, or one like this before. I don't know. I'm a blur.
I think he had it flipped the other way, to be honest. At the bird on the other side.
Is this a test, Peter? Is this a test?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember us saying, didn't we say something about the edge here or the masking?
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, I remember you saying something about that. And we had a whole conversation about the one leg and everything. Yeah.
He's disqualified because you can't resubmit the same image. Like, isn't that in the bylaws or something?
Yeah, it is. Peter, now you're banned from submitting for 5 critiques. No, I'm kidding. But for the folks that may not have seen this image, let's just go ahead and critique it anyway, since it's in here and it's up.
Right,
what do you think?
I really like these kind of images. I love the starkness and the contrast and simplicity. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that. What I'm not a huge fan of, and this is a great image, Peter, so I'm not picking on you, but what I'm not a fan of is pure white backgrounds. And if you see off to the left, you start to see there's a slight gradient coming in with a little bit of tone. I want to see a little bit of tone. I don't want to see paper white, for those of us that spent time in a dark room. Like, I don't want to see paper white. I don't want to see through the color. To me, because it feels like it's artificial, right? It's like floating in space, and even space has stars, right? So I want to see something back there. And I get a sense that this branch was masked out, or that the contrast and the clarity was pushed so high as to push the background out. And that creates weird edges on the branch. Mm-hmm. So, not knowing what the original looked like, I would say not push it so hard and leave some tone in the sky. Even if it's just, 10% or 5% of gray, leave it there, because it gives us a foundation for the bird to exist in, as opposed to bleeding off to, the brightest pixels on the page.
And there's a place for these kind of shots, right? So if this was part of a larger collection of photos of fowl, right, with descriptions and information about them for some purpose, and this was sort of a dictionary type book or something where we just wanted the viewer to focus on the bird and nothing else, then yeah, absolutely. But I agree with you. When I look at a shot like this that's very high contrast, like this one in particular, I think of it as a layer in a Photoshop document. waiting on another layer to be beneath it, right? Or
Right.
something, that's kind of what it feels like, which would be quite easy with a shot like this to pick out the subject and put it on something else. Yeah, but as far as the shot goes, the gnarly wood kind of reaching from left to right, cool. The interestingness of the one-legged bird here, probably, obviously it's a resting state for the bird, and the composition of the bird looking, towards the other side of the frame, which is what we talk about all the time. Have your subject looking into the frame versus out of the frame. So all that's spot on. All that's spot on. But I agree with you. Having some sort of contextual background there, even if it's just a wisp of clouds or something, just a little bit of something just to anchor the image versus having it floating, in purgatory would have added a little bit to it.
And that probably goes back to my, fine art black and white film days where, we were taught, and that was sort of the commonality at the time was, when you put your paper in the easel that's holding it, right, you're going to have pure white on the edges. You never want to bleed into that. You always want your image to be on the paper, which means if you have an overexposed area, you did a slight burn so that you never had pure white at the edges. So
Yeah.
that's where that kind of comes from for me.
Yeah. Well, on this shot,
you know.
while we're talking about this shot, because I love having you on because your part of your brain goes into competition judging mode, right? Not to say you're judgmental, but I guess you are by design, right? but when you look at this in the context of placing in a competition, would this merit?
That's a really tough question. I would say in general, yes, I think it would merit because for some reason these do really well and I'm baffled by it. But if you get like a really prominent bird photographer, I don't know, but not being a bird photographer myself, I think that there's nuances to this that they may or may not like. I think that this would be a low merit, to be honest, like in the 80s, low 80s, if just right at 80. Like this isn't something that's going to get a really high score.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. And our friend, Mr. Tim Engel in the chat reminded me that we have 10 images to go and we're already 30 minutes in. So we need to step it up. Thank you, Tim, for the gentle prod. All right. Moving on. Phil's up next. Phil says, a moment. Took this in January, but reworked it this week. Here we go. Thank you, Deborah Cole. Here we go. Look at that.
Very nice.
I always hear classical music in my head when I look at a Phil Lewenthal image.
Oh, funny. I don't hear classical when I do that. No, I really like this image a lot. There's a lot to look at. And Phil, big kudos for those that haven't seen a bunch of your work. It would be great for them to see that, to see the progression of your work. I feel like your images are getting more sophisticated and more intentional. And I really appreciate that. So like this image has four really powerful elements that I love is you've got the splash in the back that's happening. You've got all the rocks, which I love. You've got the sort of the smooth, silky water in the foreground. And then you've got these really neat water details like running off of the rocks themselves. So there's a little something in there for everybody. And I really do appreciate that a lot. I like that. I don't know if it's just the way that it's coming through on the stream, but I would really like to see a little bit more punch in the contrast of the image. I feel like the blacks are a little bit flat for me. Now I know that, there's a preference. Everybody has a different preference. So, but just my personal preference. Curious what Frederick thinks.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and I think the challenge in a shot like this, and maybe it's not a challenge depending on your level of Photoshop skills, but if like increasing the contrast in a shot like this while keeping those blacks from going completely black and losing that cliff face in there, I think is the challenge. I think it's doable depending on what resolution feels or how much data is in the shot. But yeah, I agree with the contrast, and it's not overall. I think it's just in those mid-tone areas that I want to see pop a little bit. The water areas I think are okay. I just want to see a little bit. It's hard to even articulate. Just a little bit of push to the right on the contrast on just those mid-tone areas, and that would add a little separation, I think, and make it more crisp. I don't know, but it's good like this too.
Right.
I don't know.
I would caution the word contrast, because contrast is an evidence of the separation between highlights and shadows. However, it's also a slider in all of our editing tools, and so you can increase contrast without using the contrast slider. So I'm a huge fan of looking at your images and looking at the tonal values and choosing the proper method. So in this case, you're absolutely right. The highlights are perfect. Just bring down the shadows or the blacks. Don't touch the highlights. Using the contrast slider will separate the two. You don't want to do that. I'm going to say never, but I never use the contrast slider. It's too destructive, and it pushes everything too far. Correct.
Compositionally, post-processing nailed it, right? Compositionally though, this rock in the lower left, would you leave that in or take it out?
I would leave it in. I think that it adds a nice element. It's super close to the other rock, so I don't feel like it's super intrusive. And it's not the brightest element. It's not the darkest element. It's just kind of there. It gives us a little bit of frame so the water can run out the lower right-hand corner. So I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. No, I'm not usually, but I am.
Yeah. If Phil removed that rock from the lower left, he would probably have to adjust the crop of the overall shot up a little bit and have less water in the bottom, which would just change the whole personality of the shot. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool. Thank you, Phil. Love it. All right, William Bannock is up next, and he says all activities monitored Birmingham, Alabama. Let's bring that up. Nice. All activities monitored. Okay.
It's gonna take you a second, isn't it?
Oh, I see it. Okay, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, it took me a minute. I was looking over here. I'm like, okay, this thing up here, or is it the bars and the windows in Birmingham? Oh, it's that. Okay. All right. What do you think?
I love it. I love these scenes. These scenes are some of my favorite. Anytime we're road tripping or anything and I see something abandoned, I'm like, I'm there. I love all the textures, wide and small, right? Like wide and close. Like I love all that. This image in particular, I really enjoy the tonality, the flatness of it, right? Like looking into those windows, I want to walk up and see in there. And no, Frederick, we don't need a clown in the window. Just saying.
I was thinking more of a ghost. I don't know.
Yeah. I know what you were thinking.
Yeah.
A couple things I would suggest is one, burn down that concrete a little bit. I feel like it's a little hot. I know that's probably very natural, but I would burn it down so that it doesn't draw our attention. Allow the shadows in the window to draw us in. I would crop off the left side right to the building and let that sign be right there on the brick the way that it is, right? Don't crop the brick building, but right to the edge, nice and close. I don't think any of that space over there is very helpful.
Yeah, right here, right? All this off to the left. Yep.
Yeah. And I realize that's going to push the sign right to the edge of the frame, and it's going to be nice and tight. But I think that it works in this instance, and it also will help hide the sign a little bit even more, right? You're not going to see that sign as quickly, and I think that's clever. So I like it. Great eye, great shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like obviously, again, subjectivity. There's multiple shots here. I agree with what you said. The left side, I'm getting distracted trying to figure out what's over here. It's not really adding to the overall shot. So yeah, I would crop it right there. And if there was a little bit more on the right side here, whether you need to add that in post or if it was actually there in the image and you cropped it, I want just a little bit more space off to the right. So less on the left and more on the right. So that's the one shot. And then the other shot, I think, is just a punch in tighter. Forget the surveillance sign, but just a punch in tighter on the door and the window. So make the whole story about that door and the gnarliness of this old door with bars and a padlock on it, and the windows that a window into a place that you probably don't want to be inside of. Make that the story, right? That becomes the story. And go with it. But yeah, processing wise, I like the super high, almost lithographic contrast he's got going on here. It sells it, and it makes it feel like old. Not that I've ever been to Alabama, but from the pictures I've seen of old Alabama, this is what I would imagine it felt like back in that day. It's very, very a little depressing in a lot of ways, a little bit run down, a lot of character. A lot of tension, and I think he captured that nicely.
Yep, I agree. Yeah,
very good. All right, William, way to go. All right, up next is Eric Pronsky. Very simple. Chairs at Dusk, Lake Crescent. Took the shot about a week ago, a week and a half ago in Olympic NP. What is NP? Should I know what
National
NP
Park?
is? National Park. Just write National Park. All right.
Yeah.
He was hoping for a brilliant sunset, but it didn't happen. So I created this dusk image with silhouettes of the chairs and smooth out the water with a 60-second exposure here. Look at that.
Yeah, that is really, really beautiful. I think you did an amazing job here, Eric. Yeah.
Yes.
I dig it. I really appreciate all the subtle tones and the restraint, if you will, to not push those too far. So often these get pushed really far, and we just don't need that in an image like this. This is really great. And at first I was like, oh, the chairs need to be perfectly squared, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, no, that's actually pretty cool, right? It gives a little organic sense. Breaking the pattern a little bit, if you will. So big kudos to the image and for seeing it and using the techniques of long exposure to smooth the water and get those reflections. So bravo.
Pre-visualization, right? He knew this is an artist that knew what they wanted and knew how to use the tools to get what they wanted, right? It's not just hey, there's a pretty picture. Oh, I got it. Let me work on it in post. This was okay. I want that water smooth. I need to do this. I want a silhouette, so I need to do that, and then I'll do my post processing. And when I look at this shot, I thought of course right here on one of the chair edges here, there needs to be a Corona right there with a lime in it. Right there, just kind of hanging out. This would be the perfect Corona ad, like a wish. Don't you wish you were here kind of thing? Yeah, this is cool. What else? So what else would you do on this shot? Would you like the 3:2 crop he's got going on here, or do you think it needs to be a little bit wider, or just ship it as is?
Yeah, I like things to be off center a little bit more. So I would love to see a little more space, maybe to the right, so that the chairs are pushed a little bit to the left or vice versa. So I feel like you could walk into the frame or walk out of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
I wish this is such a vast space, right? And it's very hard for me to concentrate right now because Tim Ingle is sending me via text AI rendered images like huddles of clowns.
Tim is trying to sabotage the critique. That's what he's doing.
I gotta close my messages because they keep popping up. I think that I would love to see these chairs in more space. Really, like this area seems to me to be vast and open with a lot of space around it. And I like space. I like to feel the openness. So, that's not this photo. I love the photo the way that it is. But if there was one where the chairs were more isolated and there was more space around them, I might like that one a little bit more.
Yeah. And color-wise, yeah, like on this shot, this is one shot that needs the color, right? I don't think this would be successful or as successful in monochrome. You agree?
I do agree, and actually, this is very monochromatic in a sense, right? Because we don't have a lot of tones. We really just have sort of a warm tone in there. So again, it leans into that simplicity of tone, and I like that. I think it's well done. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
very
I want to
good.
go there. Now I want to sit in one of
Yeah,
those chairs.
with a Corona right there. All right. Dr. Pronsky, thank you very much for that shot. Up next is James Glenny. Says, trying to get back into this. Went waterfall hunting again the other day. First one in a long time. Went pretty well. Posted in black and white, as I think I like that better, but my wife likes the color version better, so I'll add that in the sub comment. Let's see. Where is it? Yeah, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So here's the black and white. And
Hmm.
and here's the color of that same one. Intriguing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Very interesting. Very interesting. I tend to lean towards black and white when it comes to outside. And where I would struggle between these two is the color gives me more separation of the subject matter, right? So the waterfall is warm, the trees are green, the sky is blue, and I get more separation in the color. So if I want to make it black and white, which I would because I love black and white, I would try to do the same thing in the black and white. So you can select those different color values in the image, bring up the water like you've done, bring up the trees less, and then push the sky back, right? So you create those tones in your black and white. Right now, the trees are, and again, maybe it's the stream, but the trees are all blocked up and they're muddled. I don't see any separation in the trees. I think you need more separation in those trees. So, so I didn't really say which one I like better, and I can't
You're
choose because then
indecisive. You're indecisive.
it would go against my love of black and white.
I love black and white too. Looking at this shot though, I agree that the tree area is too blocked up. The sky is also it's very dark in comparison to the waterfalls. I personally think the color version is more pleasing because I want to see those. I want to see the green lushness of these trees and that blue sky, and kind of illuminating the waterfall down here. So I feel like the color version is better. Where I get hung up on though is the length of the long exposure, and maybe you can comment on this, Troy, because we see a lot of waterfall long exposure shots which look beautiful, but then there's a limit to how long those long exposure shots should be before you lose all texture in the water and it no longer appears as water. It's sort of like flowing milk or cotton or something. I think we're approaching that level now. So I like the long exposure showing the beautiful flow of the water, but I want a little bit more detail in the water. And then off over here, this left side, there's something going on here and I can't tell, but I'm drawn to this side. Maybe it is just the same long exposure on water over here, but for some reason my brain is reading it as blurry and out of focus, where I feel like on the right side here this is sharp and but with the really long exposure on it. So those two things, and then this rock down in the lower left hand corner, I think I'd probably just get rid of that. It's not really helping anything like in that other image, like in Phil's image. It was kind of guiding the flow of water. Here is just kind of a photo bomber here. So I would take him out of there. I'm curious what you think, Troy, about long exposures and how much is too much, or is there such a thing as too much?
Well, it's like anything. I mean, how much sugar do you put in your tea? Everybody has their level. Like, I prefer no sugar, just in case you were wondering. I think that the same thing goes with long exposure. For me, I like to see as much detail as possible that the water is flowing over, meaning that where you have like the big rocks in the back, if there's splash happening around them and you do too long of exposure, it just makes the rocks soft. And we don't have that going on here. I think this is a good amount of time for long exposure.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements in the calm water where you see some like really cool little squiggly lines and things of objects moving through at a slower rate, and those are there. Everything hasn't turned to complete silk. So I like this. I think this is an appropriate length. When I do long exposures, I often shoot at different intervals just so that later I can look at them and see what I like. And then I sometimes composite them just
I was going
because,
to ask you that. If you ever blend, do you ever just,
I do.
sometimes you can't get it in one shot.
Yeah, and sometimes I like the way that the water looks, in a long exposure, but like I said, there might be a mist or a spray that's covering up a detail that I really, really like just because it's a long exposure, right? All that interfering water or whatever that's splashing in front of the rock. So then I'll use the slower or the faster exposure, right? So I can get some detail on that rock. So I do that. But I like this image. I think that it's the proper length. It's good. It's in the range, right? It's there. It's in the sweet spot.
Yeah. And for the record, I like the color better. Troy is wrong about the black and white.
I'm not. I'm definitely not. It's probably the stream, and it just needs some finessing. But the black and white really brings out the waterfall. I'm a huge fan of it. So.
All right, let's get a vote in the chat. Put a thumbs up if you agree with Troy. And what should they put in for
a
me?
Thumbs down if you
no, that was the wrong choice of emoji, wasn't it? Put a smile if you agree with me, a thumbs up if you agree with Troy. All right, moving right along here. Craig Stampley's up next. He calls this one Practice Day. Look at that thick border. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, what do you think? Looks like he's channeling a little Phil Lewenthal in here, just a pinch.
Yeah, he's got this location that he photographs, and he does these panning shots with the waves and the surfers and stuff, which I just think are just quite brilliant, and they're beautiful. I really do love this image. I don't love it as a square though. I think that to me this is a horizontal. I don't think I need all that foreground. I think there's just too much foreground in there, and I would crop it, right? I would make this a horizontal image, and then I think it would be, nearly perfect. If we were going to enter this in competition, because I know Craig does a lot of competitions, even at my affiliate, this is one of those things that the judges are going to struggle with to give it a higher score, because there is all this space in the lower half that doesn't really serve, and it puts the surfboard dead center vertically and horizontally. It just doesn't work for that. So I would crop it. You still get some of the reflection of the surfer, but yeah.
Yeah, a shot like this. Yeah, I agree. A shot like this makes me want to see more of what's going on. It's all about the wave, right? Well, it's all about the surfer and the board and the wave, but the wave is a huge supporting character in a shot like this. And I was thinking, okay, I like the shot and I like what he's captured here, but I feel like it's part of a bigger story. Like maybe even a triptych or something where you see this shot, or you see the surfer laying down in one shot, the next shot she's doing this, she's standing up, and then in the final shot she's wiped out or something, or whatever, a concluding shot to the triptych. In that situation, I think this would work better because it's focusing the viewer on the narrative of this surfer practicing, right? Which is what he titled this, Practice. And it's okay that we're punching in and almost looking through a telescope at our subject, but on its own, it, like exactly what you said, Troy, it's where I feel like I'm constricted and I want to see more of what's going on and the power of that ocean that the surfer is taking advantage of. So yeah, it's interesting. This is part of the joy of photography, because it's like, yeah, I mean, compositional notwithstanding, or composition notwithstanding, with the surfboard in the middle. But even that though, I'm not hating on that. I like that the subjects that he chose to put the surfboard dead center horizontally in the middle, and off to the left in our lower third, or in our rule of third area, we have our subject. So the board is in the middle, but our subject and her expression are positioned in one of the thirds. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's the subjectivity of photography.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well said.
All right, Stampley, thank you all for that. Up next is Karen Sweeney, Saxon Wasp, having a pit stop on some woodland figwort. I love that figwort. It's good stuff, man.
I love Karen. I just love how you have like the names of things, like, you know, the Saxon wasp on the woodland figwort. I mean, that to me, that's a T-shirt right there. Just those words. That's
No,
gold.
you gotta, Troy, you're missing it. You gotta say that. Read that again in a David Attenborough voice, and then it'll make sense. Right?
No, I don't need any more things for anybody to make fun of me of. That's
Exactly.
fine. I don't need that.
I love it.
God.
All right. What do you think of this guy?
I really do enjoy this a lot. I really like it. And kudos to the presentation first and foremost. And shooting macro. I mean, just for those that haven't shot macro, before I get into the critique, I just want to say it's really hard. It's not that easy to get, you know, a tied up shot close on an insect this small and get things in focus, right? So it's really, really tough. With that said, and getting picky, I wish we had a little more depth of field in this image. The flowers tack, which I think is fantastic. The wasps, I don't know what that'd be. That'd be the last back left leg is sharp.
Yeah.
But as we come up, like the eyes, the head is not sharp. And I just wish that those eyes were sharp. And so that would really only be my critique. And because we mentioned competition a couple times, that would be my suggestion. I would be like 82, 83 on this because of difficulty, composition, lighting is beautiful, but a few points down because of the lack of that sharpness on the eyes. But that's why I said that in the beginning, is because it's hard. So credit for that.
Yeah, all that. Looking at this, 100%. When I look at this shot, my eye goes directly to that eye, and also the antennae at the top, right? So, and seeing those not being sharp leads me back down into the eye, and I'm looking for sharpness in that eye. I don't know why humans we have to see a face, and we have to see a sharp face and sharp eyes in order for it to make sense. But other than those two things, I think the other thing that I may have done, Karen, is maybe lose a little bit of that space on the right side. Because I know you wanted to position. I understand the crop that you were going for here, and I understand the wings. Of course, you can't get too close to the wings, so those are challenges, of course. But just kind of looking at it with blurry eyes, just to kind of understand the composition, I feel like I want to be punched in just a little bit. And that blurry eye thing came from Troy Miller, trademark. But I want to be punched in a little bit more on this. Like, I don't care. I don't need to see all this, the biology of the flower here. I want to see more of this guy. So maybe if we're cropped in a little bit tighter like that, then that would bring me in. Of course, having the eye in focus, and maybe you can fix that eye focus, right? Because it's not that far off. Wouldn't Topaz or one of those apps like that, couldn't that go in and add that sharpness back in, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to make things sharp where they're not sharp. But maybe with a little AI, you could put an eye in there with AI. See what I did there?
I knew the dad joke was coming. Your kid is grown and out of the house. You're no longer allowed to make dad jokes.
That wasn't a dad joke. That's a photographer joke. That's clearly.
It wasn't a dad joke. It was just a bad joke. Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, that's all right. We forgive you, Trey. I don't know. Yeah. So otherwise, looking at the shot, if it was punched in, do you agree on the punch in piece? Would you have punched in on this? Or are you good with the space for the animal to hang out in?
I would have cropped off a little bit on the right, but I had to leave something for you to talk about. So that's why.
Thank you. You're so magnanimous. I just can't get over that. You're so generous. This is amazing.
It's what I hear. It's what I'm told. That's what I'm told.
Exactly. From your minions and your disciples.
Yeah, from the people I pay.
All right. This is great. Love it. All right, Karen, thank you very much for the Saxon Wasp having a pit stop on some woodland figwort.
I love it. That's a t-shirt. I swear it's a t-shirt.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Paolo's up next. He calls this one Mirrors, Mirrors. Captured in a narrow alley in Naxos, Greece 1 week ago. A young lady managing a jewelry shop kills the time with her daughter, or with her younger brother while waiting for customers, both enslaved by nowadays. Mirrors, shot on his Fujifilm X100V with a wide angle converter. Yeah, look at that. Signature Paolo.
Yeah. Yeah, signature Palo. Yes, I love that. Yeah, great toning, good mood, great title. Presentation is always really, really nice. Only a couple things would I suggest in an image like this, and I really do love the mood. I think that we have, this young boy that is clearly just bored out of his mind. It seems like the slouch and the slump in there, and then this young lady who is, she looks nice, like she's dressed nice and she's like reaching towards her necklace, which I get a sense of maybe she's looking at herself and she's making sure she looks good or something. So she doesn't look as bored, she looks more attentive. And I love it when you have the subjects both kind of having their own independent personalities in the frame. So I do love that. Two things for me is the highlight in the room behind her is hot, and I would just maybe that's in the stream, we don't know, but I would just like to make sure that there's detail in those highlights as opposed to blown out. And the only other thing is the young boy's right toes are cut off in the frame. And yeah. I know Paolo will not use AI to fix those, and I respect that. But that's one of those things when you're shooting, right, to keep an eye on. So
Yeah, I agree. And, for the record, at least as it stands today, AI does not have a great track record with fingers and toes. So I don't know. It might be better to just leave them cropped off like that. Everything you said, 100%. The only thing I would add to that is it feels like the image is a little bit rotated clockwise, just a little bit. So it feels like that floor is going downhill. You can tell by the, these structures over here being not vertical, obviously your door frame is a little bit, and granted, Paolo, this may be just the technique straight out of camera. I'm not going to crop, I'm not going to rotate it. This is straight out of the X100V. But if you were cropping, I would rotate it to the left just a little bit, just to make these verticals vertical in there.
Yeah, very nice.
All right.
Bravo.
Thank you, Paolo. 3 shots left, FYI. We're a little bit over the hour, probably another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Nora Zanotinus is up next. The spotted eagle owl, sitting at the side of the road in the shade of the grass, surrounded by clay-colored desert sand. Look at that. Look at those. Those are some fascinating creatures. They're like birds and cats mixed.
Yeah. Wow. That guy is so cool. I am really my OCD is really having a hard time with that little piece of grass stuck in his breast feathers. Like, dude, pull that out. Like, come on, man. Photo shoot and stuff. Like, get that thing out of there. Awesome. It makes me itch.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, when was the last time you ate something and didn't get some on your shirt, man? Come on.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
All right. Aside from that, try to not look at that piece of grass there.
Very much like what Eric Pronsky just said in the chat is that the eyes are striking. I mean, that is the hero to this image for me. I just love that so much, and I love how they just really are piercing. I would probably crop a little tighter. I think that we could lose some of the left and some of the top, and put the whole overall body of the bird in like a centered in a square frame. I think it would work very well. We're already tight on the lower right and the bottom, so I would be okay with that. Is just come in a little bit tighter on the top and the left. I don't think we really need that. And very strong image, very powerful. I love it.
Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, not much to say about this one. Yeah, just it may be, depending on what you're going for in the shot, it may be cropped a little tight, which is converse to what we just said about the other one. But this one may be cropped just a little bit too tight. And then down here, I'm getting lost a little bit in what's happening here. And obviously this is a candid shot, right? Nothing, you could control anything about what happened when she did this in Zambia, but on the side of the road, capturing this owl, grabbing some shade. But if you did have the power to do it, I would add a little bit of space around the owl to give us a little bit more context of where this owl is. Maybe not a whole lot. Maybe there's multiple shots, right? Maybe there's this close-up shot and then maybe a wider shot showing more of the Zambia landscape with this owl kind of positioned correctly photographically in the frame. But yeah, this is fun. The other piece of it is when I'm looking at this, I'm getting lost in the intricacy of the feathers here and the face of the owl and I don't even know what you call these ears on the top of the owl's head. So I'd want to, if the resolution allows it, I'd even want to see an even tighter crop of the owl, just so that we can get lost in the eyes here and the beak and all that, because I'm being forced to kind of look in closer on my own. So just give it to me. Give me a shot that is letting me get lost in that owl face, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And just to go back a little bit to this Paolo shot, Paolo posted a comment in the chat, which I think is pertinent. He said, there's nothing straight nor vertical in those villages. So, although maybe this was as shot, maybe this is the way things were just hanging, in that area. So I'm curious to go to that village and kind of see how it looks over there. But I just wanted to close that loop and close that image. All right. So we did our owl. Last two are this one from Jim Peters. He says, taken last May, but not uploaded or processed until today. Look at that. Deborah's influence. Again, shot it with his Pentax 645Z with an 80 to 160 mil lens at 118, f32 at a shutter speed of half a second. Look at that.
Yeah. I love these. I love these kind of shots. Walking the beach and stuff, like these are some of my favorite things to photograph. So I really appreciate this. This is really, really nice. Couple thoughts. A little more space for the log. I would have given a little bit more breathing space if possible. But if you're not going to do that, that's fine. I mean, this is everybody's different view. Definitely lean into the colors a little bit. You've got that blue reflection in the water. I would probably bring that up just a tad and add some contrast to it, or some clarity maybe, just to give it a little bit more crunch and let that color contrast between the upper left and the lower right. But straight up amazing, super simple, and I think most of us just can imagine what that's like, being there, hearing the water, and that's what this is all about. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is a little bit, maybe even like an eighth of a stop dark? Because I feel like it's just a little bit, and maybe it's coming through the stream that way, or maybe it's the brightness on my monitor. It feels like it's a little bit on the dark side, especially like down here. These shadows are getting blocked up a little bit, and I want to see more detail. Not a whole lot more detail, because I understand what the photographer's trying to do here, but I want to see a little bit more detail in this rock, or I mean in this wood, this driftwood.
Right.
And then the other thing is this corner here, which makes me kind of think like, okay, what's happening way off and to the right there? Because I want to see that gone. So I want to see that maybe content aware filled out of there, or otherwise taken out of the shot, because I don't think this is really adding to it. This whole action area here, the motion of the water, kind of the diagonal division of the water and the sandy beach here, with this guy interrupting it in the middle. That's our story, and then this is just an interloper here on the right. So I'd get rid of the interloper.
Right.
And maybe a thicker frame. You got me sold on these frame things, right? I think maybe the frame on this one could be just a hair thicker, because I think the reason being compositionally, because we have this sort of darkish element in the shot here. I think with a thicker frame, it would have played a little bit better with this with that element of the photo, if the frame of the photo was a little bit thicker or heavier.
Right.
But yeah, cool
No,
shot.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a good lesson for us all to learn is when we're in a spot like this photographing, seeing that lower right-hand corner. Because yes, you could take it out now. But if you were there, you had range on your lens, you could have got a little closer, shot a little bit wider, tilted the camera to get rid of that, that's probably pre drop off into the beach, right? Like the higher sand, so where it
Yep.
eroded.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. To simplify and clean up that image. Now, if this was my image and I was going to go, into this and I really, really liked it, I would remove that lower right-hand corner and I would probably get rid of a lot of that debris on the sand.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
That's just me. Yeah. Yeah.
I would have too. Yeah, absolutely. Unless it was pertinent to the story, right? This is the after a big storm or something, and it was part of that narrative. Then sure, yeah, leave that in there. But yeah, I would have, again, in service of the log or the driftwood being the story and the water rushing over it. The little detritus on the beach there and that corner element are taking me away from that and making me kind of think about other things. But if you remove all these, then it's just beach, and I can think more about what the subject is here.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Peters. That was good. Very good, sir. All right. And our last shot, let me reload this just in case there were some sneakers in that came in the back door. Look at this. It's telling us this ended 14 minutes ago, so I'm late. All right. Next shot here is from Tim Engel, our critic. That Tim says, it's football season again over the weekend. I had media for the high school team, or media day for the high school team. This is an image of my friend Chris, who's been the head coach for 9 years. It's a 2-light setup with a sheet of vellum behind him and a strip box behind that. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at that. So this isn't hatchet lighting, right? So hatchet lighting is when you remove light from the sides of the image. You have kind of a strip down the middle, or vice versa, right?
Well, hatchet lighting is when you have two lights off on like 30, 40 degree angles behind the subject, lighting them on the side of the face, not in the center. So yeah, I mean, it's the same look, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this has a little bit of that vibe, but a little bit better lighting control, obviously. So I like the image. I mean, I think that it's a really, really strong image. I wish we had a little more light in his eyes. I mean, if you're going to do a studio setup like that, like it's getting a little bit more light in his eyes. And the only other thing about this image is he's got this like really strict sort of fig leaf kind of pose, right? That's a very, very staunch pose, but he's got this big smile, and I kind of wish his hands were more relaxed, like just kind of out to the side with open a little bit, with palms forward or one hand, like a little bit more dynamic, like he's just about ready to reach out for a handshake or something. But I mean, that's just personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, the lighting is exceptional, as we know Tim is good at, and there's no clowns in there, so it's great.
Wait for it, right? I'm wondering what this what this shot is for, Tim. You said it's for a media day. Is this like when you just do these kinds of shots of the coaches and the players and all that, and this gets posted somewhere, and they all need to be sort of high contrast like this? I'm curious, kind of like when we hit the first shot, I think it was, the Peter shot with that bird, the one-legged bird, which was very high contrast with just the subject and nothing in the background. Depending on the usage, obviously this is a portrait and it's media day, so this was intentional to shoot it like this. But I'm curious what where the ultimate placement of this image will be. Oh, Tim says it's a program's guide. Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Yeah, and to wrap this one up, so my comments on this, I agree with what you said, Troy. Just I wouldn't see a little bit more light in the eyes. I don't know if his glasses are obscuring that and making it look like there's less than there is. But yeah, I'd want to see our eyes as viewers go directly to their eyes, and if they're shadowed like that, it kind of takes us a step back. So very good. And Tim, Let me put this on screen here. See if I can screen share this. He sent a short video of, let's see. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm sharing it. So this is 16 seconds of the behind the scenes of that shot.
Place in front. There you go. 1, 2, chin down a little bit. Glasses. 1, 2, 3. Good. One more. 1, 2, 3. Good. Good. Is that everybody?
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Tim in action. All right. So you need to pick a favorite. I don't care what you said.
I need to pick a favorite.
You need to pick a favorite shot out of all of these. Yes. I have my favorite. I know what my favorite is, but you need to pick.
Well,
Or you just want to leave it to me. If you want to chicken out and leave it to me, I'll take it. It's okay.
well, okay. I see where you're going with this. I see what you're doing. All right. Yeah, put me on the hot seat. Okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
here, no particular reason other than they just sort of like scream to me. It is where'd it go? It's Eric Pronsky's.
Oh, okay. Cool. Alabama?
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing. Like each of us will have a favorite for a different reason, but I just got back from a road trip. I went to Colorado and I am dying to go do another road trip to get out on the road again. You're showing Tim's video.
Yeah, I'm trying to switch it.
Oh.
Okay.
And so this
that
this
it?
to
No,
me
that's not it.
feels
There we go. Too many windows on the screen.
professionals at work.
Yeah.
Eric's image just really reminds me of wanting to be on vacation, to be out in the world photographing, and that's that's why it speaks to me a lot. So that's just a favorite for that reason.
I like the shot, but I got to say, being in Birmingham, Alabama, shooting this is not my idea of a vacation. So maybe a street photography adventure, yes, but not a vacation. You know what my favorite was? I like this shot, but my favorite was Phil Lewenthal's. Just sort of that vista. Let me bring that one up too. This one.
There you
So
go.
this one just blows me away. I get lost in this shot. Even with all our comments, increasing the non-contrast or making the blacks darker in this shot. I think this one is just exceptional, for a lot of reasons. And like you said in your commentary on this shot, Phil is evolving and changing over time. We're seeing it as he experiments and tries different things with both post-processing and the photography side of it. So yeah, two different images for two different reasons, right? One is kind of street photography and one is obviously part of a larger body of work, landscape. So I think this is probably one of those situations where we choose both shots for as favorites. We do that every now and then. We haven't done it in a while, right? So
Right.
yeah. So we'll choose both of those shots. So congratulations to our photographers on both of those. All right. So thank you, everybody, for hanging in with us. We went a little bit long. I apologize for that. Oh, William Bannock. Yeah, thank you. The Alabama shot is William Bannock. Thank you, Eric, for correcting us on that. Troy, what's our next critique topic?
Something old, something new, something old made new. I don't know. You got to come up with a clever title for the post, but
Okay.
yeah, yes, like go back and like your oldest set of images, right? Like way back, and dig something out and show the before and after. So the actual image you'll present to us is a before and after. And so we'll talk about how the new image looks better and where the old image was and what you improved, and use all the tools you want, right? Use your AI, do whatever you want. Just modern technology today versus what you had back then.
I love it. I love that idea. That's great. And I'll explain it all because I think I know exactly where you're going with this. I'll explain it all in the post for this or in the event. But I think that's again, kudos to Deborah for sort of giving us the spark of an idea for doing the revisiting of raw file images. But yeah, I think what I want to see in the images that are submitted are either, like you said, the before and after. Like, this is what you thought was great back then, and this is what you think is great today, which will be kind of an indication of your evolution as a photographer and what you think is great now versus what you thought years ago. But I'd also like to see the original too, the original image, not the raw, but just like the straight out of camera JPEG with none of your post processing added in there. So I'd want to see what that looks like. Barring that, just the before and after. Like, I post processed this in '85 and it looked like this. In 2023, I did it again and it looks like this. Right? That's kind of what I want to see. Yeah. Cool stuff. Good idea. You guys see, look at that. You have good ideas sometime, Troy. That's amazing.
Yeah, once or twice a week. That's it.
Yeah. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So.
That's where I was going with that. Thanks for elaborating.
I know. All right, we'll leave it right there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this stream. If you enjoyed this photo critique, this live stream, please give us a like on the video. And if you're not already subscribed to the TWIP channel, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because a lot more will be happening on this channel over the next coming weeks. So you'll want to be subscribed for that. All right, we'll leave it right there. Any final thoughts, Troy? I'll leave it to you for the last few pearls or nuggets of wisdom.
Thank you for joining us and letting us ramble and be part of your day. I greatly appreciate it.
All right.
We appreciate it, right?
Yes, we do. TWIP appreciates it. All right, we'll leave it right there. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the community. So get in there and post, and make sure you get your images in for this critique. And we'll see some of you on Friday for our member mixer. All right, We'll leave it right there. Thanks, everybody. See ya.